Today's the day that we begin our academic research paper. This is a requirement to get credit for English 111, and it has to be 1,000 words, MLA format, and it counts for 200 points. So it's double the normal points that you would get for a regular essay, and again, that's by design because Campbellsville University says if you pass this class, you can do this type of writing. So everything that we've done this year has led you to this assignment. It's considered the capstone for the course. So if you think back to August when we began, our first essay was using narration, description, then we added expository to that, and we talked about how all of those different modes of development overlap and build with one another. And even if you're writing an argument like this paper, you're going to call upon description, narration, and exposition in order to achieve that. So by this point, as a writer, you should understand that writing is a complex process with lots of overlapping parts and pieces. So this is going to be an argument. That means you're going to have a thesis statement that someone reasonably could disagree with. You're going to marshal evidence and support from authoritative print and digital sources, and you're going to include a refutation of a counter-argument. So in other words, you're going to look at the opposition and show how that's not a plausible or tenable theory. Now, it doesn't have to be so simplistic that you've just got one paragraph that has your counter-argument. You can blend in the counter-argument throughout. Really, the organization is up to you. So today we're going to walk through the basics, and I'm recording this and putting it in Google Classroom in case you need to go back and look at any of these once you actually start writing the paper. This is a short turnaround because May 9th is the due date for the summative portion of this. I cannot accept late work because I have to submit grades that weekend for Campbellsville University. So that means that I will ask to see what you have this Friday, which may not be a whole lot. Out of 1,000 words, you may only have 250 or 300 by the end of this week because the bulk of this week is landing on a topic, developing a research question, and reading sources. But that's the work that we're going to begin this week. Next week will be heavier on you actually sitting down and writing the bulk of the paper. So let's begin with topic selection. I'm going to take you out to the Kentucky Virtual Library, so if you'll look at the board, follow along. You may want to do this on your own laptop or phone as we talk about it. So if you go to kyvl.org, you should be granted access to it. There could be a password required if you access this outside of the school's network. I never remember. If that's the case, then I can get a password for you. Or you can go through Campbellsville University's Montgomery Library, and since you are a tuition-paying student at Campbellsville University, you can use your email login credentials through Montgomery Library in order to gain access to the virtual library. So using the virtual library in high school is the same access that you have once you're at a college or a university. So it's ubiquitous. And if you go out of state, every state has their own version of a virtual library. So this is a tool that you need to become familiar with. If you were doing personal research, if you were planning a vacation for this summer, you would probably begin your search with Google. This is academic research. Academic research doesn't begin with a Google search. It begins with a subscription database search. So the virtual library is like an online card catalog where all kinds of journals and magazines and reference works are categorized so that you can access them digitally. And that's the kind of sources that I'm asking you to get. You have to have a minimum of 3 sources that come from the virtual library for this paper. If you need additional sources, and one of those sources comes from a purely electronic source, it can be electronic so long as 3 come from the virtual library. If you need 6 sources from the virtual library, that's okay too. A minimum of 3 have to be accessed from the virtual library. So when you're getting something from the virtual library, you can rest assured that it's authoritative, that it's reliable, and it's valid. It's been curated by librarians. And these are primarily from journals, not magazines. Can anyone tell me the difference between a journal and a magazine? A magazine example would be like Time Magazine or U.S. Weekly News Report. A journal might be the American Psychology Association. What would be the difference between a magazine and a journal? Who are journals intended for? If the American Psychological Association puts it out, who's that intended for? Professionals, scholars, academics. Time magazine, that's on the racks at the checkout at the grocery store, right? That's a general audience. So you will have college professors who will ask you to write journal reviews. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about an academically specific audience for a publication. Where do you find journals? Virtual library, always. So here's where we're going to pick our topic. So if you go to KYVL and scroll down for K-12 students and high school resources. Everybody see how I got there? For K-12 students, high school resources. And then it brings you up a list of ways that you can search. Now we're going to come back to this and utilize Academic Search Premier a little bit later. Right now I want you to find the link that says Gale in Context, G-A-L-E, Opposing Viewpoints. Follow that link and it takes you to this site. Now this is a subscription website. You can't access this unless you access it through the virtual library, because it's saying that you are a student in a Kentucky public school that pays for the virtual library, and this gives you access to it. And so you'll notice that the title of this is Opposing Viewpoints. The beauty of this website to pick this topic for this argument research paper is that it will give you sources that are point-counterpoint. In other words, it's going to give you sources to support your thesis, and then it will give you sources to support your counter-argument. It's almost as if it's built in for you. You're also writing a research question for this paper, because there's no paper that exists that doesn't attempt to answer some sort of question. So you're going to choose a topic and then clarify the topic by writing a question, and then your thesis statement ought to be an answer to that question. So if you'll look at this, it gives you issues of interest. Global warming happens to be the one that's featured right there. And then it's got browse issues, and it's got all kinds of different things. If you click down here where it says browse all 487 issues, click that link, and it gives you this kind of view. You have 487 possibilities for a research paper right there at your fingertips. There are 34 of you, so out of the 34 of you, I imagine you can find a topic within the 487. That's the beauty of using the virtual library. So let's say, for example, we want to, I don't know, food waste. I'm going to click that one. It says it's updated. And so it gives me this little overview of what food waste is and what the issue is. And then it gives me a read more opportunity. And so I begin to read more, and it gives me that particular article. Okay? And I may read through that and decide that's exactly what I need. If I come up here to these little quotation marks that say cite, I can click cite. MLA 9th edition, it cites the source for me. I want you to know how to cite sources, but don't reinvent the wheel. The virtual library does it for you. Next year, if you take my 112 class, we're going to use APA formatting. Guess what? Click the link for APA, and it gives you the appropriate citation in APA formatting. Guess what? If you take my English 210, you'll write a paper in Chicago style. Click the link, and it gives you the same article correctly cited in Chicago. When you go to college, you may have a professor that asks for APA, a professor that asks for MLA, one that asks for Chicago. You're going to know how to do all those citations and know how to access that through the virtual library. So that's one of the benefits of using virtual libraries. It's going to cite the sources for you. And so if I go back to my food waste topic, it gives me featured viewpoints, 22 potential sources, and then regular viewpoints, 9, and reference works, infographics, statistics, even images, videos, audio, magazines, news, academic journals. Remember, I was talking about the difference between a magazine and an academic journal. It even tells me the Lexile level of each of these and how many words it is. If you're unfamiliar with Lexile level, it's the grade level at which it is written. And so as a college student, you should be reading at Lexile 1200 or above. All of that wealth of information is provided to you in Gale and Context. That's where I want you to pick your topic from. I'm not particularly interested in what your topic is. I'm interested in how you present your topic. So you can write about whatever you want to. I would just try to stay away from trite topics that have been so overdone that there's really nothing new that you can say about it. So try to drill down into those 874 topics and find something that maybe is niche and unique and will give you an opportunity to further explore a topic that you're actually interested in. So there are a lot of topics there for you to look at. So that's step one of this research project, is to log into the virtual library, find Gale in Context, peruse the topics, find the topic you want to write about, and then you're going to frame it in the form of a question, and you're going to submit this tomorrow. So tomorrow when you come to class, everyone in here is going to tell me a topic, and then you're going to give me a research question. In other words, what are you attempting to find in your research? And the answer to that will frame your thesis statement. Then, even today, once you have done that, you can start gathering the articles that you want to use. I would highly recommend that you find a way to save those. So when you click on, let's go back to this article. When you click into that article, you can download it to your downloads and then maybe pull it up in your Google Drive. You can copy the link and put it in a Google Doc. You can definitely get the citation, but you're going to have a way to get back to that article. And a lot of times students will find a really good article and then the next day say, Mr. Dodson, I can't find that article that I had yesterday. Well, I can't help you if you can't put the search terms back in and get it. You're going to have a way to get back to that article. Naturally, what will happen is you will pick some topics and then you'll start reading them, or you'll pick some sources, you'll start reading them, and they don't give you the kind of information that you need. Then abandon that source and go on and find a different source. So the part about research is that you search and then you search again. Research. And so your question may change, your topic may narrow, your topic may broaden, and you may find that you have to jettison some sources and rely more on some other sources. Right? That's just kind of the natural process for a research paper. Once you have found those sources, then you can use Academic Search Premier if you choose to do so. So I'm going to go back out to where we clicked on high school sources. Let me see if I can get back to where I want to be. Academic Search Complete. So it's right under Gale in Context. And if I want Academic Search Complete, this is like the huge card catalog from the virtual library. When I search, and this is provided through EBSCO, when I search anything that's EBSCO, I always click on Advanced Search because I want to be able to set some limiters. So if I were writing a research paper about ADHD, and I wanted to specifically look at the effect that Ritalin has as a medication prescribed for ADHD, and I just type in the name of that medicine and search, what can you imagine is going to happen? I'm going to be flooded with hits, right? So I've got, within that search, 4,556 results. I don't have time to deal with that, so I need to narrow my search. And so one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to limit it to full text because I just don't want an abstract. I want to see the full text. And if I do that, I've dropped it from 5,000 to 1,740. So that's still too many for me to look at. So if I go back to my filters, I can filter it based on the year of publication, the type of publisher. Any of these can limit my sources in this advanced search. I can also limit by which databases that I'm searching. Let me go back out and that's not what I want. Let me try this again. Let's say this time I'm going to limit to full texts, Ritalin, and I'm more concerned about its overprescription in young males. So I'm going to add and boys. And if I really want it to be about Ritalin, I'm going to make sure that it appears in the title. And so if I limit it to, it's going to have that in the title of the search, then it's probably going to be very relevant. So I started with 5,576 results, then I limited it down to full text and got 1,700, and now I've limited it to 5. 5 is manageable. So see how I've used an advanced search to funnel down exactly what I'm looking for. And so now I have just 5 articles that I can look at, and it says access the PDF now. Sometimes these are a little wonky and will make you look like you have to pay for a subscription to get to it. Do not pay for a subscription to get to anything on the virtual library. There should be a workaround. So hopefully it pulls it up, and it does. And it has my citation tool just like it did in Gale and Context. And so I find MLA 9th edition. There's my works cited. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Now watch me very carefully. I'm going to right-click copy. I'm going to come into my research paper. I'm going to go to the second page because I know that's where my works cited is going to begin. I hit Control and Enter, and I get a page break. If you are getting page breaks by just hitting Enter until you get to the bottom of the page, then that's going to scoot down all of your pages when you go back and insert. So Control Enter gets you a page break. Now notice what I do here. I'm going to right-click, paste without formatting. Does everybody see that? If I paste, it's going to copy over the formatting that came from the original website. If I paste without formatting, it puts it in the format that's in the paper. So it's in 12-point Times New Roman, but I need my whole paper to be double spaced. So I'm going to click double. I'm going to make sure that I do not have any extra spaces. So if it says remove extra space before paragraph or remove extra space after paragraph, I want to make sure to do that. And I want works cited to be centered. I'm not going to just space it over. I'm going to use the center function. I'm going to delete that extra space. And I'm going to include a hanging indent. So to get a hanging indent, one way you can do that is put your cursor in front of the first word of the second line, hit Enter, nothing happens, then I'm going to hit Tab, and then it's going to allow me to tab and move so that I have a hanging indent. Everybody good with that? Okay. So at least 3 sources, either from Gale and Context or Academic Search Complete. Your topic will come from those 874 topics or so that come from opposing viewpoints or point counterpoint in Gale and Context. Now, for your actual paper, we've done this all year, so it should be no mystery to you now. You're going to set this up in MLA formatting. Whoops, my name. So the top of your paper should look like that. Your first and last name, my name as Mr. Dotson, that's how I want to be addressed professionally. English 111, that's 111, not capital I. Inverted date with no comma, 9 May 2025, because that's the due date. And then you're going to center your title. And back to the left margin and indent. I'm going to insert. Page number, upper right hand corner. Put my last name, space. Change that to Times New Roman, 12 point, and then click out of it. Whoops. And then the next page will be page 2, works cited, looks like that. What questions do you have for me? There are no other assignments except this one. This 200-point assignment due on May 9th in final format, final draft.